I just spent 4 months living in Buenos Aires, Argentina. In this video, I'll share with you what I liked, what I didn't like, and everything that you need to know before going there yourself. So for starters, why should someone choose Argentina? I think Argentina is an amazing starter city. If it's your first time in Latin America, this is probably the place that you should go. There are a few reasons for this. First of all, it's cheap. You can live down there without breaking the bank. Like rent for me was only like $1,200 a month Canadian. And you can get on any public transit, like the train or the subway or the bus for less than $2. It also allows you to dip your toes into Latin America without fully going off the deep end into it. Like in Peru or Colombia, you often see like guys pulling carts around and there's wild traffic and there's a little more danger there. Argentina is extremely safe. In fact, it's got like a green rating on the government of Canada's website. It still has a few of those things that Latin America has. Like you get a little bit of the Latin American vibe, but for the most part, it feels European. Another reason why you might choose Buenos Aires, Argentina is because of how big the city is. It's massive. You can ride the train for like an hour and still be in the city. I never even explored the half of it. Honestly, the neighborhood I was in, I wasn't able to fully explore it when I was down there. It's just so big and there's so many cafes and bars and things to do that you'd never get bored in Buenos Aires. There's always something that you can go check out for the first time. The weather's also pretty decent. In the summertime, it's like 35 degrees Celsius. Very similar to North American summer. It isn't too cold. It does get warm. It does rain sometimes or thunderstorm, but the majority of the time it's going to be nice and sunny out. On that note, I would get AC if you do go down there just because it is so hot sometimes. Another pro, if you're like a guy who's wanting to like date when they're there, is Argentina has some of the most beautiful women in the world. At least that's what they say. I find there's a lot of like culture there. Like if you like a Latina, then they're there. If you like a European girl, they're there. It has a lot of variety, I guess you'd say. If you go to the area that I go to, which is Palermo, there's an endless amount of bars and cafes. There's a whole area that's just bars that you can go to in like a park area almost. And there's cafes like every fifth store and a ton of restaurants. So you can definitely walk and go out to eat anytime you want and find a new spot even anytime you want. It's also extremely safe. Like I was vlogging on the street all the time and never once had an issue. Never once did I feel unsafe. You can let your guard down a little more compared to the rest of Latin America as it's not nearly as dangerous. If you're into like steaks and beef, you can get that for very cheap down in Argentina. Like when I was down there, I was eating a steak pretty well every day. Now I cooked a lot of them myself, but still, it was extremely cheap. And if you go out, you can get steak a lot cheaper than you would in North America. They also have like the best steakhouse in the world there. The Argentinians like their beef. And I kind of mentioned this already, but the city is extremely walkable. Like I was able to walk to the grocery store, which was like a 10-15 minute walk, to the gym, which was right down my street, to any cafe. Anywhere I wanted to go, I could walk to. I never ordered an Uber when I was there except to get to the airport and from the airport. So it's nice that way that you don't have to constantly spend money on transportation. Now, why not Argentina? Probably the biggest con with Argentina and the thing that frustrated me the most was the tourist tax. And when I say that, there's not an actual tax, but you do kind of get screwed over as a tourist. When I said it was cheap earlier, it is. The Airbnbs are great value. And if you're not in the touristy areas, then the prices are great. However, a lot of you are going to stay in Palermo or Marsaletta or Puerto Madero. And these are very tourist heavy places. And because of that, the price tag on everything is reflecting of that. For instance, if you go out in a country like Peru, for say, you can live a life of luxury and go out all the time, buy as many drinks as you want, and have a hard time spending all your money. But in Argentina, that's not the case. You go out, it's expensive. It hurts the wallet. It's not much cheaper than North America to go out. If you go to like a fancy restaurant or a luxury place, you're still going to be spending like $80-$100 for a nice night out. So just something to keep in mind. Alongside this is the phone plan. In, say, Peru, you could get a local phone plan for cheap, like $30. And in Argentina, even though I went to the exact same carrier that I was with in Peru, it was not going to be cheap. They didn't allow me to get a local phone plan, even though I was there for 4 months. I needed to get a tourist one. And while those are fine for like people who are there for a week or two, it was not going to be very cheap for me being down there 4 months. They had no data, and I ended up just sticking to my Canadian carrier. Probably wasn't the best decision. I should have went with one down there, but it was a pain in the butt to set up, and it wasn't like a deal. So if you're going to Argentina thinking you're going to live a life of luxury and your Canadian or American dollars are going to go a shit ton further than they would at home, they do on some things. However, on other things, they don't, especially in the tourist heavy areas. If you go outside of those areas, then 100% you're going to be paying local prices and it's going to be a lot cheaper. But in the areas that are popular there that a lot of people go to, they're not cheap. So just keep that in mind. Another thing with Buenos Aires and the rest of Argentina is they're pretty far south. And that means that when it's wintertime, it's going to get cold. They still have palm trees there, so it can't get that cold. However, this year it did snow in Buenos Aires. I don't think that's really a normal thing for Buenos Aires, but just keep in mind, it does get chilly there and you probably don't want to go during the wintertime. This next point, although I found it a pro, it'll probably be a con for you. And that's how late they go out. If you go to a restaurant at 7 p.m., there's no one in it. And if you go out drinking at like 10 p.m., there's not going to be anyone really out. People don't go out to eat till like 9 p.m. and they don't go out to party until like 11, 12 p.m. So if you want to party a lot, you're going to be having a lot of late nights and then ruin your next day in terms of productivity. I didn't mind this because, one, I never had to book a reservation because when I wanted to go eat, nobody was there. And it kind of turned off my urge to party, and I was able to lock in and get a lot of work done when I was there because I didn't want to ruin the whole next day. Some people are going to find this next one a pro. I didn't. I found it a con. And that's how European it is. If you like Europe, then it'll be great for you. However, for me, I love Latin America and the grunginess of it and the fact that it's just rough around the edges. I don't even know how to explain it. There's just something about the vibe you get in Latin America that just makes you feel like you're in the wild, I guess. And in Argentina, you don't get that. It's very European. So if you're looking for the Latin America vibe, definitely would recommend somewhere else. But if you're looking for the European vibe, then it'll be a great spot for you. And the last thing that is kind of a con is they have homeless. This isn't like the North American homeless where they're like doing the fentanyl walk. They're not like drugged out or anything. They're just poor and not able to afford a home. They don't bug you and beg for money, and they don't like feel like a threat, but they are there. It's just kind of sad to see them around. And you do see garbage on the streets sometimes. This only lasts for like a day. They're pretty frequent at coming to gather the garbage. So this isn't that big of a deal, but it does look and smell kind of gross sometimes. The next point is a few things that you should know. So the Argentinian culture is very like rebellious. I think this is why they stay up so late, is because it's kind of like a rebellious thing. But tattoos are a commonplace down there, and smoking is pretty well everywhere. So if you're not big into the smell of smoke, you definitely will notice it quite a bit more frequently there than, say, North America, but it's not that bad. It's just something to be aware of. The public transit system is definitely something that you should be taking advantage of. You can go all over the city and even outside the city with a train, subway, or bus. So in order to use it, you need what's called a Sube card. You get one of these from a convenience store. There's not really a specific one that you get it from. You kind of just have to walk into a few and ask if they have it. And then once you get it, then you go to either the train or the subway, and they have these booths, and you walk up to them. You can give them up to 10,000 ARS and then hold your card up to your reader and load that money onto the card. And then when you're on the bus, you just tap it and then press your destination. Or if you're using the train or the subway, you just tap it to the gate before you get into it and you walk through. And then when you get off of it, you tap it again and it'll tell you how much the ride costs and how much you have left on your card. On the topic of transportation, when you're coming into Argentina, try and find a flight into George Newberry. It's like right downtown Buenos Aires, so it'll be nice and convenient for you. Where Easy E is like 45 minutes to an hour outside of the city, depending on traffic. So if you can, go to George Newberry. That said though, there are very few flights that land in there. Usually they're just local flights that go to Paraguay, Chile, or Brazil. So it might be hard for you to find one. I definitely wouldn't choose an option with a layover just so that I could land there. It's just convenient to have if you can go that route. Now to get to Buenos Aires from the airport, I used Uber. And it took like 45 minutes for my driver to get to me. It was kind of a pain in the ass. And honestly, Ubers throughout the city are very few and far between. I did some research here and I read that they're in like a gray area, like they're kind of illegal, hence why they don't go to the airport. So to get around this, use Cabify. It's a lot more frequent down there and a lot easier to find a driver. If you're at the airport trying to get into the city, that's definitely a better option to go with. In terms of where to live in Buenos Aires, the best neighborhood that you typically hear about is Palermo. This is because it's got like the most bars and cafes and is very walkable. So it's nice for us digital nomads. It's easy to get around. Everything's in a nice, convenient location. Palermo is broken up into multiple different like neighborhoods. There's Palermo Soho, Palermo Pacifico, Palermo Nuevo, Palermo Hollywood. I stayed in Palermo Pacifico. It was a good spot to go to. There's also Palermo Soho that everyone goes to just because the bars and cafes are a little more frequent there. And if you're looking for a new building, Palermo Nuevo is going to be your best bet, as they actually have a few skyscrapers there. Now, if you can't find one there, another good spot is Puerto Madero. This is the most modern part of the city. It has pretty well all skyscrapers and it's on the water right down where all the bars are. So if you have some money, this is definitely a cool spot to go to if you want to like live in a modern place. If you're the opposite and you want to live on a budget, I'd find a spot in a neighborhood outside of Palermo. This way you can take a quick subway ride into Palermo and enjoy all it has to offer, but you're not paying for an expensive place and you're not spending a premium on food. It's going to be a little bit cheaper for you outside of Palermo. That said though, do your research on the neighborhoods. Most of Argentina is pretty safe, so you don't have to worry too much, but go on Google Street View, see if it's a nice looking neighborhood, do a little bit of research with ChatGPT. Finding the best neighborhood isn't as important in Argentina as other Latin American cities, just because the country's a little more safe. But I don't want you going somewhere and end up being dangerous. So do your research here. One cool thing that I definitely recommend doing when you're down there is checking out the local parks. There are quite a few different parks in Buenos Aires and they each have like their own character to them. For instance, near Palermo, I went to this park that was like a Japanese garden, and I went to another one that had a big lake in the center, and I went to another one that was like a botanical and had like all these massive trees and plants, and it honestly didn't even feel like you were in the city. So definitely check those out. Another cool thing to check out is the buildings down near Palacio Barolo. This is like the government side of the city, and there's very cool buildings that are old and have amazing architecture. So I definitely recommend checking those out. And if you can, check out the palace. It's pretty cool too. It has an amazing view at the tops, which is definitely worth checking out. If you're scared of heights, maybe avoid this one, but it is a pretty cool thing to tour through. The water in Buenos Aires is a bit iffy. I didn't drink it. I was concerned of it making me sick. I've heard locals drink it. I've heard some areas you can drink it, some areas you can't. So do some reading on this. Drink it at your own risk. I didn't, just because I didn't want to get sick, but you could be fine. It might make you sick depending on where you are. So just use some caution here. As with most, if not all of Latin America, Pedosia and Rappi are the two main delivery services down there. You can get anything from a restaurant to groceries to even, I had a friend that was down there who forgot their keys in someone's purse and couldn't get into their apartment. And they ordered a Pedosia bike to come deliver their keys to them. So you can get local deliveries too, which is kind of cool. Another cool thing about Argentina is they don't really have laundromats. What you do if you need your laundry done, you go to what would be a laundromat here in North America and you just drop off your clothes. They will wash them, dry them, iron them, and then fold them for you, put them in a bag, and then you come pick it up a day later. So it's definitely a very convenient service. It just is a little more expensive, but it's not too bad. Another thing you want to make sure to do is bring lots of USD. I'm honestly not too sure what the cap is before it gets you in trouble with customs, but I'd look that up and bring pretty much that, because you get a much better exchange rate on USD cash than you do withdrawing it from an ATM when you're there. USD is regulated there, so it's hard to get your hands on. And because of this, they have this blue market where you can get a much more favorable exchange rate than the official exchange rate on your USD. On that note, if you do run out of cash, Western Union was the best place that I found for an exchange rate. They are somewhere in between the official rate and the blue chip rate. So definitely go there to get more money. It's definitely worth it to use cash over your credit card just because the rate's much more favorable, especially if you use the blue chip market or the Western Union option. Now, Argentina Spanish is known to have a lot of slang, so you might find it difficult to speak Spanish here. I never notice anything just because I find it difficult to speak Spanish regardless, but just something to note. For instance, they use vos instead of tu, which was weird for me to catch on to. And unlike most of Latin America, the healthcare in Argentina is actually pretty solid. Thankfully, I never had to use it, but when I was doing my research on Argentina, I kept reading how it was kept to a fairly high standard compared to the rest of the area. Now, who should go to Argentina? For starters, anyone who's concerned about safety, this is a great spot for you. As I mentioned before, on the Government of Canada's website, Argentina is rated as a green, which is the best rating a country can get. It's definitely the safest city that I've been to in Latin America. For instance, I was vlogging out on the street and was constantly having my camera out and never once felt like I was in danger. So if that's of importance to you, I definitely would say that Argentina is a very great country for you. It's also pretty cheap. It's not the cheapest, but it's definitely cheaper than North America, especially when it comes to like Airbnbs and stuff. If you're outside of the popular areas, you'll definitely find cheaper food, but it's in the middle. You won't live a life of luxury there, but you also will find your dollar goes a lot further there than in North America. If you like Europe, Argentina is definitely going to be a good spot for you just because it's so European. I also think Argentina is a great spot for those who are brand new to digital nomading. For one, the safety will be appealing for you. It's a good price for you, and it also gives you a European vibe so you don't feel that far away from home, but you still get a little bit of Latin America. After all, it is in Latin America. So if you're interested in exploring more of Latin America, this is a good middle ground. It's like dipping your toes into the water instead of jumping right in. If you like the gym, Argentina is a great spot to go. The gyms are everywhere, especially in Palermo. Supplements, on the other hand, are a little harder to find. I had a hard time finding protein powder and creatine when I was down there, but the gyms are very easy to find there. In terms of who should avoid Buenos Aires, I'd say people who hate big cities. Buenos Aires is massive, and you definitely feel like you're in a big city. When you're walking across the road, there's sometimes like 20 lanes you got to go across. There's traffic, always people out walking, and it's just a wall of buildings. So if you're not into the big city vibe, I would avoid Buenos Aires. Also, if you like the roughness of Latin America, you probably won't like Argentina as much as other spots just because it is quite a bit more European. For some people, that would be a huge selling point, and for others, it'll be a big turnoff. So it depends on what you vibe with. If you're looking to live like a king for pennies on the dollar, Argentina is definitely not the place to go. Luxury experiences like restaurants or fancy bars are definitely priced accordingly, and your money is not going to take you very far. You will definitely have to be a bit frugal when it comes to that. There's other areas in Latin America that you can live for cheap and feel like a king because you're spending very little on these experiences, but Argentina is definitely not one of them. If you're someone who's looking to lay on the beach all day, I wouldn't go to Buenos Aires. You could go to Mar del Plata. That's a good beach town, but Buenos Aires is not a beach town. It has 0 beaches. You're not going there to swim in the ocean. It's not a place for that. So definitely check out somewhere else. Now, you may be wondering if I would go back. And to answer that, yes, I would, but it wouldn't be my first choice. There isn't anything wrong with Argentina. I just like the Latin America vibe better than the European vibe. I still loved going to Argentina, and I definitely think it's a place that's everyone should experience at least once. However, for me, who likes the grunginess of Latin America and how it's kind of rough around the edges, Buenos Aires doesn't really have that. It's very European. That said, if I was into the European vibe, I would probably not want to leave there. It's got everything you could need and more. I also think that if I was making a larger income to the point where I didn't have to check the bill at a restaurant, I would have had a much better experience just because there's so many bars and restaurants that you can go to. And if you have a large income, you can experience that all and not have to worry about it. So in 5-10 years, I might be changing my tune completely and not wanting to leave Buenos Aires. But right now, where I'm a bit more on a budget and trying to make my money go farther, I think that there's other areas in Latin America that better suit me. Now, if you like this guide, I made a whole other guide on Lima, Peru. So if you want to check that out, make sure to click right there and don't forget to click subscribe.